If you open Claude Code and your first thought was, what does any of this mean? You probably sat there for a minute to stare it. And then you saw a black screen, a blinking cursor, and words you probably never heard before, like MCP, context window. So you do what everyone else does. So you Google it, you watch a tutorial, you understand half of it, you get stuck, and then you close your laptop. But just know that the problem isn't you. The problem is that no one started explaining you the foundation first to understand how the system actually works. And after scaling my AI agency to 6 figures and helping hundreds of people start theirs, I'm here to give you today what I wish someone gave me when I started. So the core concept explained in plain English, stacked one on top of the other. And by the end of the video, you will just know what really matters to start and use Claude Code proficiently. So with that being said, get comfortable and let's dive straight in. So the first thing that we're trying to understand is what is the difference between Claude and Claude Code. So let me give you a quick definition. So Claude is actually a chatbot. So you type something and you get a reply. They can start accessing the web and maybe browsing it since like a few months ago, but actually they cannot act. And when we talk about Claude Code, we are talking about something that resembles a developer. What does this mean? It means that it has access to your full laptop, and this means that it can create files, create websites, set up databases, clean anything that you want in terms of folder, and so on and so forth. So this is a big difference between the two. Now that we know this, we think, okay, but how do I communicate with Claude Code? Well, this is concept number 2, which is terminal versus GUI. So we have two main ways to communicate with Claude Code. So the terminal is what you see on the left-hand side right here. And what do we see here is that there is nothing but this bar, which we will call terminal bar, which is basically where we can prompt whatever we want to Claude Code, and Claude Code will be able to answer or do things for us. So we immediately understand that we don't need to be software developers to be able to interact with Claude. On the right-hand side, we have the so-called GUI or graphical user interface, which is pretty easy to understand from here because we have button here's on the left hand side and because it's more graphically appealing, right? Now the bar is this one where we're going to be able to prompt Claude, and now we will do a quick example on how to run the two of them. So starting from the terminal, all you need to do is press Command and space bar if you are on Mac and write terminal, and this will be the interface that you will be greeted with. And once you have downloaded Claude Code, all you need to press is Claude, which is the only command that you need to know. And then you will be able to say, yes, I trust this folder. And here I'm going to be able to say something along the way of, hey, how are you? And then here Claude Code will actually answer us. So as you can see here, our prompt is with a rectangle, while the answer that Claude Code gives us is without anything additional. Now, as far as the graphical user interface is concerned, here we are using anti-gravity. All we have to do is press open folder. We're gonna open a folder, which in our example is example YouTube. And this is because everything lives in a folder in our graphical user interface or when we use it. Then in here, we're gonna be able to press Claude Code and install our extension. And here, if you don't have it, you will be able to press install. Once you have installed it, the way you call it is by pressing this star right there. So you're gonna call it, and let me close this so we can clean it up. And then from now on, you can just simply prompt it something. So, hey, how are you? And then in here, if we press enter, we see that right now we have a better graphical user interface versus what we had in the terminal. However, we start noticing the same patterns. Now that we described terminal and graphical user interface, we can talk about prompts, because how do we communicate it with Claude Code is basically with a prompt. And here on the left-hand side, I left for you a prompt, like a very simple one. But basically a prompt is simply a way to tell Claude Code what it is that it needs to do. And you need to be very specific with the prompt, because the more specific you are, the better are the results that you are going to get. Here on the left-hand side, as you can see, this is an example of a prompt. And as you can see, it's written in Markdown format, which nothing is more than a way that we have in order to tell the LLM what is the priority of our text. So for example, one hashtag means more important than 2 hashtags, and so on and so forth. Now that we know what prompts are, naturally we think, okay, but can we talk forever with Claude Code? And the answer is no, because we actually have the concept number 4, which is the context window. And basically context window, nothing more is than the sequence of prompt that we share with the LLM, and so in this case with Claude Code, that will get bigger and bigger and bigger the more our conversation go forward. So just to give you an example and to explain you this picture properly, we start with an input, which is, hey, how are you? And we get an output, I'm fine, how are you? And then we have maybe another user message, and then we have another output right here, right? And you continue, and the context continue expanding the more that the conversation goes forward. Generally speaking, the context is between 200,000 and 1 million token. A token, you can think about it as 1 token equal 1 word for simplicity. And to give you an example on the practical side on how can I see that the context is expanding, let's go real quick to the terminal. Let's imagine that we say something along the way of, hey, how are you? And then the LLM will answer us something. And then I'm like, how many letters do I have in the word Paolo? And then once we receive the 5 letters and etc., then I can check how much is my context. How do I do? With one thing that I call command. And command start with this /. And let's just learn the first one for now, which is context. Context will help us understanding how many tokens there are in our message. So let's remove these for now that are not necessary. The one that we're looking at is the messages. And what it's telling us is that in our conversation for now, we have 285 tokens. As you can see, I told you before, it's not really one word, sorry, it's about 3 letters, 3 to 4 letters is a token. But this is basically how you can control the context. So if I say, hey, and how about in the word Paul? And then I let it answer. And then once again, I write context, you will see that the context now expanded and it's not anymore 248 token, but it's 3.4k, because on top of the tokens consumed here, we also consumed all of these tokens that the LLM gave us as, right? So basically the token, you can think about it as the things that we are seeing in the screen, right? So all of the words and the letters. Now that we know how to talk to Claude Code and how to manage its context, one natural question is, hey, but can Claude Code actually do anything always? And the answer is that we need to introduce the concept number 5, which is permissions. So as you can see right here on the bottom of my screen, you see that I can have a pencil where if I press, it goes from ask before edits, edits automatically, and plan mode, or bypass permission. So these are all the 4 ways that Claude Code has in order to perform a task. And basically ask before edits will say is something that Claude Code has in order to ask before edits basically means that whatever Claude Code will do or whatever task you will give it, it will always ask for your permission before doing anything. So let's now make an example. So I have created this Gino's demo, and what I want to change is now this one. So let's see how it works. Hey, can you please change Gino's demo and call it Pino's demo? So what Claude Code will do now is that it will not do the change, but it will ask me if I want to do the change, and then I will have to confirm it. So we will see here that a pop-up menu will appear before doing the change, right? So you can see that here it showed me how it was, how it would be, and if I want to do it. Now I'm going to press no, because now we move to the second option, which is edit automatically. So edit automatically means that Claude Code here can change anything without my permission. However, it cannot create or delete new files. So let's make an example. Hey, can you change Gino's demo into Pino's demo inside the Gino.md file? And now here for this, I am going to duplicate the thing and I will call it Gino copy just for you to see now. Perfect. So you see now that Gino has Pino's demo, right? And then we have the other file. So now it didn't ask us if I was sure about the change, but it just did it. Now let me show you. Hey, can you please delete the markdown file GinoCopy.md? And now what's going to happen is that we do not have the permission. Just to confirm you want to do this, this cannot be undone. So you saw that at this point, Claude Code didn't do it yet. So if I refresh, I will still see that it's here and it's not done. While if I say, okay, yes, do it, then it will do it. But it will always ask for our permission. And this is what happens, right? So now we only have Gino. And as you you saw, Don Gino copy has been deleted. So now that we understood edit automatically, let's make another example with bypass permission, where you will understand that this permission here allows Claude Code to do anything on your laptop. Hey, can you please delete the test file.md? So this means that we are giving full control to Claude. So you need to be careful on how you use it to your laptop. And so it will do anything for you, even creating and deleting file. As you saw here, it's been deleted without asking for any approval, right? So that file has been deleted and we have everything. Now, just for you to see what plan mode does, let me start a new conversation. And I would ask, hey, if I were to ask you to do a research on what are the best newspaper, how would you approach it? So we are asking Claude a general question, and what it will do is it will create a plan where it will give you a structured way in which he thinks of proceeding. And then once you clarify the plan and once you accepted it, Claude will be able to proceed. So as you can see here, it started creating the approach, and now it's asking us what is the purpose, what is the geography, and then it will give us a very long prompt that we can skim through. And if we like it or not, we can still interact with Claude. And at the end of this, we will be able to simply accept, change, or ask it to proceed. If the prompt is good enough and we are satisfied, generally speaking, what we do is we just accept, and then we proceed with bypass permission, because this will allow Claude to do is simply to perform the full research for us. So as you can see here, I could accept, I could deny, and this is the overall plan. So I could accept, then bypass permission, and I would have my research done. All right, now you got the foundation, and we can move to something a little bit more advanced, and we're going to talk about the CLAUDE.md. Okay, so what do we see here? Here we have a CLAUDE.md file that was written by AI and represents what are the best practices to write a CLAUDE.md. So here we know that we need to say initially what is the CLAUDE.md for. So let's imagine that we are building websites. So this CLAUDE.md represent the instruction to build a website. Then the framework we're going to be using and how we're going to structure our CLAUDE.md with the what, how, and why. So it tells you what it is that we're building, how we are building it. So some commands, how you deploy, what are the environment variables, and so on. And then the why, right? Why do we do this? What are the key decision or routing option that we need to do? Then here we're going to add two other things, which are the don'ts. So what we don't want the Claude to do. So I don't know, deleting files, permissions, and so on and so forth. And then here we're going to have some rules for writing a good Claude. So here basically in a good project or in a website project, we're going to give maybe the 80-20 rules of what it is that looking good means. So I don't know, give a padding of like 5 to keep white spaces across elements and so on and so forth, right? Now that we introduced the concept of context and also the CLAUDE.md, we think, hey, but how can maybe Claude Code remember a few things when we go in a new instance or in a new conversation? And this is where we actually talk about the memory. And not a lot of people know, but Claude Code has a memory file that is not visible to us. So it's basically a small memory that whenever we say, hey, Claude, please remember this, it will store it in this file. And then whenever we have a new conversation, it will remember that this exists. Literally like a little memory disk that Claude has. Let's make an example in practice. So let's go back to our Claude Code and let me open two in parallel. So I just opened two Claude instances in parallel because I want to show you something. So, hey, what is the name of my dog? Now we're going to ask Claude a silly question, right? And then I don't have any information about your dog name, okay? So my dog is Paul, okay? So we said that the dog is Paul. So nice to meet Paul, if you'd like, okay. Perfect. Now let's ask in another instance, hey, what is the name of my dog? So as you can see, I still did not ask Claude to save these information, and so Claude still does not remember. But let me tell Claude something like, hey, could you please save this in your local memory file? And then in the meantime that this is done, let me open another Claude instance and put it here. So here, this is being saved slowly, as you can see in the memory.md file that we don't see right here, right? It's invisible. But if I go here and now I ask, hey, do you have any information on what the name of my dog is? Yes, your dog's name is Paul. So as you can see now, we store the information in this invisible memory.md file. And now Claude remembers in different conversation what it is that we told it. Now that we introduced also this concept, then let's introduce the next one, which is the commands. So what are commands? Commands are ways in which we can control Claude Code and its interface, right? And that are pre-installed by Anthropic in here. And how do we access command? Well, we did one already, which is the clear. So we can do /. And here you see that you can start typing something. And for example, the command clear conversation is right here, and we can have it there. We saw the command /context. A ton of command, and you can simply see them right by pressing the /. Just know that if you ever want to see what all of the commands are, you can write /help and you will be able to see the help docs, right? And in here, you will have detailed everything that is needed for Claude. You have the Claude documentation, and then you can go there and use it as a reference. So the 9th concept we're going to introduce is what we call Claude skills. So let's imagine that Claude is a chef, right? So this chef can cook anything that we want, provided that we have the right recipe in order to cook that food, because this chef does not know the recipe yet. So a skill is nothing more than this instruction manual that we're gonna give this chef, and the chef then it's going to produce the output that we want, which in the chef example is the pizza. In the Claude example is the task that we want to perform. So let's make a practical example. If I go in one of my projects, I have a skill for a social media manager, and I have a skill which is called LinkedIn post. And as you can see, this skill is made of 2 things. A markdown file, which is what we were discussing before, right? That will just give the order of priority of the text to the LLM. And then the skills, which has the implementation script. So a piece of code that we will use in order to perform the task, right? So now if I say something along the way of, hey, could you please write me a LinkedIn post about how beautiful life is using the LinkedIn post skill that you have? What now Claude is gonna do is that it's gonna look at the skill slowly. You see, I'll invoke the LinkedIn post skill for you. Then it's gonna think on how to do it. Then let me get started. First, I load your style feedback and check prerequisites. Then everything looks good. References loaded, 18 posts, which is my database. And then I don't know what it is that we want. We want gratitude and perspective, right? And then that's it. Then tone, we want storytelling, and CTA, we don't want the CTA to my school community, for example. So what it is going to do is now it's going to take the input that I gave it. It's going to think and it's going to craft my food. So in this specific example, it's going to craft my post, and the output, I will be able to see it straight away right after this. So you can see the output now right here. Most people are chasing the next thing and miss what's already in front of them. I used to do this. Head down, always focused and on what's missing, what I haven't built yet, what I haven't earned yet. The one morning, nothing special happened, just coffee, and so on and so forth, right? So you can see that this is written with a certain skimmability. There are my emojis, there are my stuff, and I use it a lot for brainstorming, by the way, about topics. So this can really increase your productivity a lot if you craft skills that actually create value and make sense. So now that we introduced skills, the last concept that we want to introduce with this beginner course is the subagents. And what are subagents? Subagents are nothing more than separate Claude instances. So everything that we did so far, right? So we can open more than one, we can put them in parallel, and etc. And these run automatically because, as we saw, unless we store something in the memory, these have their own conversation. So for example, hey, can you do a research on the best way to cook pasta? And then if I press enter and ask here, hey, do you know what the other subagent is doing the research on? You see, I'm a software engineer assistant, and then it's cracking a joke and common mistakes. I don't have any subagent running right now. So you see, basically subagent are nothing more than different Claude instances, which is basically this one, the whole thing that you see, running with their own context and in parallel. How do you invoke a subagent? Basically, you can just ask Claude to import them from the Claude official documentation. I have a couple one here, QA, research, reviewer, and you see that again, the subagent is a recipe because basically we're just describing what it is that the subagent should be doing. And then here, if I say, hey, can you please invoke the research subagent and run a research on what is the best practice to cook Italian pasta? So right here, if I run it, now what's gonna happen is that Claude Code is gonna go inside this project, figure out if I have a folder called agent, go inside here and read the file. Right? Now we know that this is designed for code-based activities, so we can't really use it for the pasta. But then what it did is it went there, it read the subagent, it told us, hey, this is not what you should be using it for. You should use it for different things. And then it will give us an output, right? I want to give you a practical example. Hey, can you please run the QA then subagent on my actual code? So we are invoking a subagent actually that is designed in order to review if my code is effective or not. So it will go in all of this code, figure out what it is that it's working, what it is that it's not. And as you can see, first it's checking the subagent, now it's launching it, and then will perform the task. Okay, so now you have the top 10 concept that will help you get started with Claude Code. And if you're a 9-to-5er thinking, okay, yeah, I like this stuff, I already know even how to build a couple of this because it's easy, how do I make money from it? Then I left the first link down below for you, which is the link to my one-on-one mentorship program where I can help you get started with your AI agency within the next 90 days. So with that said, if you enjoyed this video, I'm sure you're gonna love this video right here.